Good afternoon, members. It's the appointed time. It's 2:30 p.m. now. We have a quorum. Let's get started. Agenda item 1, information papers issued since last meeting. Since the last meeting, the Secretariat hasn't issued any information paper. Agenda item 2, items for discussion at the next meeting. The next regular meeting will be held at 2:30 p.m. on the 21st of May. It's a Tuesday. The CEDB recommends discussing the following item, that is, World Trade Organization key outcomes of the 13th Ministerial Conference. This is the first item of the list of outstanding items for discussion. Do members have any views on this particular discussion item for the next meeting? So there will be one discussion item for the next meeting. No particular views? All right. Now, agenda item 3, progress on developing Hong Kong into a regional IP trading center. Let us first invite the government officials to join us. Welcome representatives from the administration. We have with us Dr. Bernard Chen, Undersecretary for Commerce and Economic Development, and his team, as well as representatives from the Customs and Excise Department and the Intellectual Property Development. Administration, please walk us through the paper. Good afternoon, members. I'm here today with IPD as well as the Customs and Excise Department to brief members on the progress and the relevant work on developing Hong Kong into a regional IP trading center. As you all know, to promote high-quality development and insist on innovation are under the strategies of the 14th Five-Year Plan. Building an IP powerhouse is one of the key components. President Xi, during this year's 2 sessions, mentioned that we have to speed up the development of new productive forces as a key component and pillar for high-quality development. With the staunch support of our country and with our advantages, we have the conditions to develop Hong Kong as a regional IP trading center. Back in 2013, the SAR government established the IPD working group, and with the recommendations of the report of this working group, we have implemented a series of measures. And with our promotional effort, IP trading has become an important part of our economic growth. To share with you some data, in 2022, the total value of exports and imports of services related to the use of IP rights total $5.8 billion and $16.3 billion respectively. Over the past 3 years, the IPD each year granted over 10,000 IP. We've done some survey between 2019 and 2021. IP-intensive industries accounted for 32.7% of our GDP, and they created or amounted to 29.1% of our total employment. The creation, protection, and exploitation of IP rights can bring huge business opportunities to Hong Kong, and we're seeing more and more prominent benefits from IP trading to our economy. In order to develop Hong Kong into a regional IP trading center, we are implementing short-term, mid-term, and long-term measures from 3 aspects. This is to strengthen protection of IP rights, building capacity, and promoting widely. On strengthening the protection of IP rights, the effective protection of IP rights is the cornerstone to encourage innovation, technological development, and creativity. Many tech enterprises, they choose to establish foothold in Hong Kong mainly because they think that there is a comprehensive IP protection regime in Hong Kong. As you all know, in relation to IP rights, there are different types of IP, including trademarks and registered designs, and so on. In terms of patent, we are progressively strengthening our patent examination team, as well as enhancing the OGP, Original Grant Patent Examination capabilities. In terms of the patent box tax incentive, the relevant proposals have been tabled to LegCo for first and second readings. We hope the LegCo can pass the legislative amendments as soon as possible. We also propose that we establish a Technology and Innovation Support Center in Hong Kong to help innovators and relevant stakeholders to exploit the IP system. This is also to help guide their inventions to or technology to the market. On copyright, last May, the Copyright Amendment Bill 2022 took effect. The bill was to strengthen copyright protection in a digital environment. The Customs Excise Department also stepped up enforcement by invoking the communication right provision under the amended copyright ordinance. It combated illegal infringement activities. We're also exploring protecting IP rights that have to do with AI technology to ensure that our copyright regime remains robust and competitive. On registered designs, this March, we adjusted significantly the fees for registered designs to encourage people to transform their R&D outcomes. IPD also has started relevant review work. Our target is that by May, we're going to consult the public on our local registered designs regime. On trademarks, we are proactively exploring with the mainland authorities to implement the Madrid Protocol in Hong Kong. We strive to implement the relevant international trademark registration system in Hong Kong. On cross-boundary facilitation measures, last year in January, we wrote out a trial scheme. The scheme allowed Hong Kong applicants to have their applications prioritized in the mainland to facilitate mutual access between the mainland and Hong Kong. 16 cities in the mainland have set up the special IP inquiry points. And also this year in Hong Kong, we launched a reciprocal inquiry service. These are measures we've put in place to protect or enhance our IP regime. Another area that we're working on is building capacity. We are liaising with relevant stakeholders and members of the industry. We are preparing to set up regulatory arrangements on patent agency services. We want to enhance service quality, nurture patent talents, and support the development of the OGP system in the long run. In terms of enhancing manpower and industry capacity, the IPD within the current term government will provide IP training for 5,000 personnel across different industries. Also, the IPD will work with DOJ to strengthen mediation and arbitration work related to IP. We'll also step up our work with Law Society of Hong Kong. Last year, we stepped up free consultation service for SMEs. Lastly, we work on the area of promoting widely. The IDP will continue to liaise with the mainland overseas organizations to promote Hong Kong as a role as a regional IP trading center. For instance, the Hong Kong Trade Development Council every year holds the BIP Asia Forum, and we will continue to promote this event. In terms of global IP rights, that has to do with application, where we're seeing the focus shifting towards the east. The IPD will step up cooperation with ASEAN economies. In terms of cooperation with the mainland, the IPD will continue to, through the existing collaborative frameworks, step up cooperation with Macau and mainland authorities in terms of creating, protecting, and managing IP. Last but not least, in terms of stepping up public awareness on the respect for IP rights, well, the IPD will continue to work with Customs and Excise Department, and through different channels will reach out to the public to roll out educational work. For instance, we'll hold different types of activities and events. We will, through producing TV promotional films and short videos to promote IP rights. The above is the relevant progress and our work on promoting Hong Kong as a regional IP trading center. We will continue to liaise and communicate with the relevant stakeholders to actively take forward our policy measures. We are happy to take questions from members now. Thank you. Under Secretary, now we are opening the floors to members. If you'd like to ask questions, please press the Request to Speak button. 8 members have pressed the button to speak. They are Dr. Wendy Hong, Mr. Robert Lee, Professor William Wong, Mr. Duncan Chiu, Mr. Jimmy Ng, Mr. Ma Fong Kwok, Mr. Ambrose Lam, and Ms. Carmen Khan. 4 minutes for each member, questions and answers inclusive. Dr. Wendy Hong. Thank you, Chairman. I agree that we should develop ourselves into a regional IP trading center. The government papers mention that we have to build capacity, we have to promote IP, as well as strengthen the protection of IP rights. This morning, I went to a seminar, and Algernon Yao was also there. Experts mentioned in the seminar that there isn't enough protection of IP rights in Hong Kong, and there aren't enough experts in this area. One biotech expert mentioned that he wanted to sue someone for infringing upon IP, but the judges involved were not very familiar with IP, and in the end, they found 4 judges to take over the case. Also, the expert couldn't find any lawyers for him to deal with the case, and it cost $13 million for 4 days. I want to know how the government is going to step up work in this regard. Also, I think in order to develop Hong Kong into a regional IP trading center, there are 2 areas that we need to work on. First, patents in Hong Kong are not recognized in the GBA. Many inventions or R&D outcomes can be recognized overseas. However, in the Greater Bay Area, these patents have to be filed again. The cost of this is high and the procedure is complicated, especially patent in biotech areas. Some experts, they have to go through the application procedure for 5 to 7 years, and yet they are not told whether their patent can be used in GBA. And this makes it hard for Hong Kong or for people to come to Hong Kong to develop R&D. Thirdly, on financing, we are not putting enough focus. For startups, IP-related financing is an important channel for them. Such channel allows IP owners to develop their IP rights in Hong Kong or develop their businesses in Hong Kong without letting go of their control of their enterprises. I want to know, in terms of helping startups to finance, what thoughts do you have?
3 questions. Secretary. Or Undersecretary, thank you. We definitely need the right talents in order to develop Hong Kong into a regional IP trading center, which is why the IPD will get in touch with 5,000 friends and provide them with training in IP, building their capacity. We also are preparing for the TISC that will help us with training talents in the sector as well. We are also working to train more patent examiners, and they will be deployed to the TISC to provide services. In turn, more people will be equipped with the relevant skills. So that's what we've been doing for building capacity. We have also been providing training courses provided by CNIPA. We will encourage those working in the field to take part in such training courses. As for the relevant professionals, such as legal professionals and so on, the judiciary in 2019 has set up a list for IP cases in the High Court and has appointed judges to handle the relevant cases that will enhance management of IP cases and shorten the time needed to process these cases. This is the direction we'll take in relation to the handling of IP-related cases. On patent applications in the mainland, IP registrations are territorial. Different jurisdictions would have different IP recognition systems and register IPs. So there won't be automatic mutual recognition of patents, but through bilateral or multilateral agreements, the registration of IPs can be expedited. In January of last year, we have put in place pilot arrangements to have patent applications made by Hong Kong applicants prioritized their examination, and this is what we have right now. I understand that 20 odd applications have been handled. We will also process our IPs and build up a database. We will share our experience with other economies as well to promulgate perhaps more bilateral or multilateral agreements. If a certain IP office has already conducted a relevant patent search or has examined patent, perhaps it will expedite our process. Well, Undersecretary, you've gone beyond the time limit. I hope you will observe the time limit in other questions, as we have 8 other colleagues who are going to speak. Thank you. Mr. Robert Lee. Thank you, Chair. I thank the administration for giving us an introduction, and I do support the initiative to develop Hong Kong into a regional IP trading center. I want to ask about IP trading as IP recognition. As the Undersecretary said, IP registration is territorial, but with bilateral or multilateral agreements, IP registrations in different jurisdictions can be expedited. Hong Kong is a metropolis, and if we want to facilitate people doing business, we need to help them connect to other Greater Bay Area cities. I can see that we have made much progress in that regard. I want to ask, therefore, how many jurisdictions does Hong Kong have connections with to have such agreements, and when we'll have more facilitation measures? Thank you. Well, the OGP system was only activated in 2021. So when we are exploring the possibility of a patent registration highway, it is only after that. We also need time to build up a track record so that other jurisdictions will recognize our system. But we will definitely explore such possibility with multiple jurisdictions. And we do have the pilot arrangements with the mainland, and the other jurisdictions will follow. Well, let me clarify this. You may not have much connectivity with other jurisdictions, but you are planning to expand such arrangements to other jurisdictions, correct? But you do not have the specific jurisdictions in mind at the moment, do you? Well, I'll let my colleague from the IPD give more information. Thank you. If we need to examine IPs, it would really depend on whether our patent examiners are qualified to examine the IP to see if the IP is inventive and novel and so on. And we had only 3 patent examiners when we first activated the OGP system. We now have 29. We are building up our talent pool, but we need to have patent examiners in different fields in order to do that. We hope to have 100 patent examiners by 2030 to cover all the scientific fields and to make sure our examinations are of quality. So this is the difficulty that we face at the moment. Thank you. Next, Professor William Wong. Thank you, Chair. I want to ask, OGP was first introduced in 2019, and as of March this year, we have received 859 applications. Only 105 are handled, so that's just 10 to 20%. Why is the rate so low? Are the others being handled at the moment? Are they still being processed? For those that are not approved, what reasons are there? Between 2022, 23 and 2024, 25, the IPD has received additional funding, $840 billion to hire more patent examiners. The short-term target is to increase the number of patent examiners from 29 to 40. That would cover the fields of electricity, mechanical engineering, and chemistry and so on. What are the administration's plans to train these patent examiners? Are you working with higher education institutions to train more patent examiners? Also, why list the fields that you have here only? Will you hire more patent examiners in other fields? Also, often when we talk about this, we only talk about the protection aspect of IP. It is also important to think about the economic aspect of IP, the buying and selling of IP. I think the administration should elaborate on how to promote IP economy. My third question relates to regulation. With the patent agency services that are to be regulated, will you consider working with the HKCAA VQ to formulate a study letter for patent agents? Thank you. Undersecretary. Thank you for the questions. With the application of patents, we have drawn comparisons with the processing time in Hong Kong and other places. In Europe, it's 24.3 months. In the US, it's 25.8 months. And right now, when we first introduced the OGP system, it's 26.8 months. So it is broadly comparable to the processing time of other places. Also, the processing of cases would be on a case-by-case basis. Some would need to make voluntary amendments. It is also the case that upon IPD's inquiries, the applicants would take time to give answers to such inquiries, which is why the processing times may be different. Please be brief. Well, that's why we would definitely try our best with the processing of patents. On training. With the newly recruited patent examiners, they will first receive internal training in the IPD. Perhaps they will have in-house lawyers teach these patent examiners the relevant legislation. The IPA will also provide them with a 4-month training. If there are external courses that we consider appropriate, we will let the patent examiners take part in such training, provided either by the CNIPA or other organizations. We were invited by the CNIPA to deploy patent examiners to take an 8-week training course before. So we have been providing training to the patent examiners on patent agency services, the regulatory framework to be specific. As said in the paper, we have been liaising with stakeholders to make preparations. We have also been consulting the relevant bodies to formulate the regulatory framework. We will take note of the professor's suggestions. We will discuss such with the stakeholders. Well, you can speak for the second round because we have gone beyond 6 minutes.
Mr. Duncan Chu, we've been talking about developing ourselves into a regional intellectual property trading center. For instance, the event held by the HKTDC has been held for years. The government papers mentions that There are different types of IP rights. We have trademarks, patent, copyright. There are also scientific inventions. I wonder if the government can provide more helpful figures or statistics to us. You mentioned about the total value of exports and imports of services increased by more than 6% and 19% respectively over the past 3 years. You also mentioned that the standard patent registrations granted exceeded 10,000. Does that mean the total value of exports and imports of services cannot catch up? Also, you mentioned about IP-intensive industries which cover arts and culture, imports and exports, and various other sectors. You're lumping all these statistics together, and it is hard for us to tell the benefits brought by IP trading. Say, for instance, you are mixing all the industries together when you analyze the data, and it's hard for us to see how IP trading is performing in Hong Kong. Can it be made clearer? For instance, say exports on film, can you have a separate set of data on benefits brought by IP trading? Can you have a breakdown in this sense so that we can tell clearly the performance of each IP-related industry? Then we can give more constructive views on how we are faring on IP trading. I'd like to follow up on the question asked by Dr. Wendy Hone. It's about IP trading or IP financing. For INT sector, we want to introduce different organizations or venture debt. Venture debt requires that you have a scientific invention or patent as a collateral. However, we don't have relevant patent examiner in Hong Kong to make evaluation of how much the scientific inventions are worth. You don't have such third-party organizations, and therefore we can't introduce venture debt in Hong Kong. So what are the views of the administration in this regard? I'll invite Director of Intellectual Property to respond. To respond to Professor Wong's point about whether we only have fields of electricity, chemistry, and mechanical engineering for patent examination. We have different types of fields covered, but electricity is one field. Chemistry or mechanical engineering can be seen as another field. There are many other subfields, but they're not listed out here. On the question about statistics, we've just done an IP-intensive study. There is a book that talks about our methodology. There is more detailed information on our study. There are basically 4 major types of IP-intensive industries that we look at. They are design, copyright, patent, and IP. Say for inventions, they cover songs or other musical works. Design, they have to do with industrial products. So there are different types of products that we look at. On import and export services, we are in talks with the Census and Statistics departments to see if we can have a detailed breakdown on the figures so that we can have a more comprehensive analysis. On IP financing brought by Mr. Duncan Chu, on IP rights and IP financing, the biggest pain point that we are facing is we are lacking the knowledge about the relevant collaterals. So on this pain point, we are trying to build our capacity through educational and promotional work to enhance stakeholders' knowledge about IP valuation so that we can facilitate commercialization of IP. Mr. Duncan Chiu may be aware that APEC was in Hong Kong for an event, and there was a discussion about the direction of IP financing. How can we create a favorable environment so that the relevant policy and measures can be implemented? So the SAR government will continue to pay attention to the relevant development around the world. We notice that for some economies, when they roll out IP financing, say, take Singapore as an example, in 2014, Singapore tried to roll out IP financing platforms, and they use IP rights as an collateral. According to the statistics between 2014 and 2018, the results were not significant. So according to them, the pain points is that the market did not have enough understanding about the area, and also the cost for valuation is relatively high. So we will work harder on building capacity to enhance our knowledge, understanding, and our supportive measures. We'll also keep in view the relevant development in other places. Mr. Ma Fong Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. The government is implementing the patent box tax incentive, and I'm all for that, in order to develop Hong Kong into an international IP trading center. And apart from registration of IP and copyright, we need to have overseas companies or enterprises to register their IP in Hong Kong, and in order to do that, we have to ensure that we have an IP protection regime. For instance, the paper mentions that in 2021 to 2023, the standard patent registration granted exceeded 10,000. If you look at the figures over the past 3 years, the number was dropping progressively from 14,000 some to 10,000 some in terms of the standard patents registrations granted. How many of these patents were from outside of Hong Kong? Such information would help us understand why people have their patents registered here. Also, the government mentions that they're going to strengthen the protection of IP rights, build capacity, and promote widely. On building capacity, does the government have any statistics on how many IP practitioners engaging in IP management or ITP protection in Hong Kong? Is training enough for these IP practitioners? Undersecretary. On the number of applications, we noticed that for original patents granted for the first 2 years, there were over 200 applications, and then the number dropped. It was because there was one enterprise that filed over 100 applications for the first year, and in the following 2 years, the enterprise stopped filing applications. That's why the number dropped. When we rolled out the OPG system, we made an estimate. For instance, for every year, we expected 100 to 200 applications. So this is in line with our expectation. On capacity building, I'd like to invite Director to tell you more. We value manpower. We did some survey on the manpower situation. The survey was done some time ago, but the main point is that there is manpower need for us to develop the 8 centers. The Labor and Welfare Bureau is conducting a study on the manpower needed. And we're also trying to study the growth of manpower in the relevant sector. We'll have the information soon. we know that in, for instance, the service sector, we are faring better. In terms of how many patent registrations were from overseas, well, a lot of them were from overseas. Well, you have to look at the markets. If you pick a place to register your patents, well, you have to make sure that there is a market for that, and Hong Kong is worth it for people to have their patents registered here. Say some people, they pick the UK or other countries to have their patents registered. It really depends on the markets they target. For patents registered from overseas enterprises, how many of them were OPG or OGP? How many of them were re-registered here? Well, it's not about whether it's an original grant patent, it's about whether it is protected. For instance, something is invented overseas and they got the patent registration in the UK. They can also do it in Hong Kong, actually. We have the OGP system. We also have the re-registration route for patent applications. Some of them, they already have the patent registered and they have the patent re-registered here. And the other system is the original grant patent system. So there are two routes. Whether people opt for the OGP system or the re-registration system, they have to prove that the patents are inventive or are original in order for the patents to be protected. I just want to know how many of them are original patents. Say 400 of them are local inventions, invented by local inventors. Perhaps you can provide supplementary information on this after the meeting. Next, Mr. Ambrose Lam. Paragraph 6A includes two sets of data. For instance, the total value of exports and imports of services related to the use of IP rights totaled about $5.8 billion and $16.3 billion respectively in 2022. What kind of trading or services are you referring to? Well, this paper only talks about local IP protection and local INT development. How can we make use of the one country, two systems principle, and how can we make use of the support we have from our motherland to build ourselves into an IP trading center? Global INT sector focus on EU, the US, and China. China should be a springboard for INT sectors, and Hong Kong should act as the middle person as a regional IP trading center. But as far as I understand, there is a lack of mutual recognition of IP registration system. So a lot of enterprises, they go directly to the mainland China to have their patents registered. They don't have to go through Hong Kong. This is because Hong Kong's market is small. Not a lot of INT inventions are registered in Hong Kong, but we have to build ourselves into a regional IP center. And can you tell us, with these restrictions, how can we do that? Undersecretary, as mentioned in my opening remarks, a lot of IT enterprises from different places in the world, they choose to establish foothold in Hong Kong, and one of the reasons is that they are of the view that we have a good IP protection regime. If you look at international ranking over the years, Hong Kong, concerning its competitiveness in IP, are topping the world. As we attract enterprises to come to Hong Kong, we sell our IP protection regime, and also we tell them about our unique advantages under the one country, two systems. For instance, we have the staunch support of our motherland as well as closely connected to the world. We also, through TDC platform or other types of platforms, bring about business opportunities for them. As mentioned, IGP registrations are territorial. It's hard for us to have reciprocal recognition of IP registrations. However, we can work on speeding up IP registration procedure.
係
On the export and import figures, if we have made use of payments when paying IP related fees, that would be captured in the trading figures between Hong Kong and the rest of the world. But for other trades, it will not be captured in the figures. So this is how we gleaned from such figures which trading figures are related to IP trades. The Patent Box Tax Initiative is very important. In order to take advantage of the Patent Box Tax incentive, people would have to register their patents in Hong Kong. Thank you. Ms. Kamen Khan. Thank you. In order to develop Hong Kong into a regional IP trading center, we should look beyond IP protection. Hong Kong has its traditional advantages. These advantages are given, and we do have to maintain such advantages. But in order to develop Hong Kong into a regional IP trading center, as other members said, we would need talents in different areas. For example, for funding, dispute resolution, valuation, arbitration, and so on. We need to have talents in all areas, and we have to work in these areas in order to develop Hong Kong into a regional IP trading center. In paragraph 10, it is said that we have only granted 105 applications. As the department said, we have a shortage of patent examiners. We are to increase in 6 years from 40 to 100 patent examiners. Where will these 60 people come from? Can the administration elaborate on their strategies to recruit the talent to examine patents in order to process the applications in a more expeditious manner? We also need talents in IP valuation as well as dispute resolution, as I said earlier. We are also seeking to promote arbitration, so this is something that we should look to. That's my first question. On trademarks, the Madrid Protocol will definitely help with that. I want to know the progress of implementation at the moment. If the Central People's Government allows Hong Kong to join the protocol, that would definitely help develop Hong Kong into a regional trademark trading center or registration center. Thank you. Thank you. I will answer some of the questions and then I'll let the IPD colleague supplement my answers. As members said, we are looking beyond IP protection. As Carmen said, we also need to ensure we have the ancillary professionals in place. We have been working with the Department of Justice to promote services in IP mediation and arbitration. We will launch the necessary schemes and services. We hope to enhance resources for professionals in the area. On trading, You may have observed that on different platforms, for example, at the film and TV market and the Hong Kong Book Fair and so on, we have incorporated elements relating to IP trading. During the exhibitions, we have provided business matching services in order to facilitate IP projects in Hong Kong, whether it's patent or trademark related, to match with other companies. When we also have the Asia IP exchange platform, we have 28,000 odd IP projects, many of them from overseas. We will continue to enhance the platform to provide better matching services. On Madrid Protocol, we have been working out the preparatory work. We have been fleshing out the procedures. We are also preparing the necessary IT system and training for staff members. This is an international treaty, which is why we need to liaise with the Central People's Government to see how this can be made applicable in Hong Kong. We have been liaising with the relevant authorities to take forward this initiative. Thank you. Thank you. Let me supplement the answers. We started from scratch. We started with only 3 patent examiners. We now have 29. And half of the 29 individuals have master's degree and a quarter of them have PhD degrees. We have been recruiting graduates at different levels. We have also hired fresh graduates. We have hired those with masters and PhDs. In the mainland, patent examiners would deal with millions of applications, so we have asked the new recruits to take training courses in different cities of the mainland of the CNIPA. We have also provided attachment arrangements for new recruits, and we will have our target being set at 100 patent examiners by 2030. Thank you. Mr. Kenneth Falk. Thank you. Chair, I do appreciate the administration's efforts, but I think the administration should have a regulatory framework to make sure there are standards. For example, for the cultural and creative industries, there should be a more standardized criteria. I'm saying this because Singapore has more comprehensive policy, and they also have an IP strategy to up to 2030. They have a specific framework to set up an IP financing ecosystem and provided some assessment tools with IP valuation. Apart from recruiting and retaining talents, we need an ecosystem to promote IP economy. And on page 9 of the Chinese version of the paper, I agree with what is said here. IP protection is very important to cultural creative industries, of course, but we need to make sure that we have measures to facilitate IP commercialization. I do agree with the direction taken. I want to ask about the distribution of work, however. I know that the CEDB has been doing a lot, but Create Hong Kong under the CSTB is also doing work in this regard. When the CSTB introduced their work, they did not mention anything related to IP. They talked about conducting visits, enhancing awareness of the country, and so on. I now understand that the CEDB should be working in the tasks relating to IP. What will you do specifically for the cultural and creative industries? Thank you. I will respond in general to Kenneth's questions. I'll let my colleagues supplement my answers if necessary. In different economies, we are looking to the example in Singapore. IP financing, indeed, the country, Singapore, has done much in that. They have also done some work in collateral, but we do not see the measures being very effective. We have drawn reference to the arrangements in Singapore as well as other jurisdictions and thus formulated our direction to build capacity and promote widely and so on. As for whether there is any potential overlap of our work with the CSTB, as I said earlier, we have the Asia IP Exchange platform, and this is exactly done with the support of the CSTB to incorporate some elements related to the cultural and creative industries. And with the assistance of CSTB, we have been providing business matching services in exhibitions. As I said earlier, we have put in place IP pavilions so as to facilitate local works to go global. Well, thank you, IPD, Director of Intellectual Property. Thank you. In order to support the development of cultural and creative industries, the CSTB has been doing a lot indeed. But we also have our work in this regard. We are focusing on IP related work. The CSTB has also been working on the amendments for the copyright ordinance in order to ensure there is communication right provisions that would protect the rights of IP holders. We have been working closely with the CSTB. We have been seeking their advice whenever necessary. For artificial designs in the digital economy, we have also been reviewing whether certain definitions are valid. We need a legal framework to provide better protection for intangible assets. I can see that two colleagues wish to speak for the second round. I will assign a shorter time limit for each member to speak. First, Dr. Wendy Hong. Thank you. I only have one question. I want to ask about IP financing. If we can expand the sources for IP financing, it will enhance the attractiveness of Hong Kong as an IP trading center. As Mr. Fox said, the work of different bureaus are interrelated. The CSTB, the CEDB, as well as the FSTB, they're all working together. We also need to involve the Education Bureau in order to train the right talents. In order for Hong Kong to be developed into a regional IP training center, we may need high-level steering and coordination. We also see other jurisdictions providing subsidies in IP financing. They would provide interest-bearing loans. They would also cover their insurance costs, banking costs, and in case there are bad debts, they may be covered as well. Will the administration provide policy support like such in order to promote Hong Kong's development into a regional IP trading center? Thank you.
Director, I understand Dr. Wendy Hohn's views. Different policy bureaus have different objectives. For us to transform R&D outcomes, IP regime is crucial. For instance, they recently have a $1 million Race Plus scheme to encourage people to transform their patent and R&D outcomes. How do people get the capital and funding to do so? Well, the scheme is supporting applicants to do that to stimulate the development of the market. In 2017, the government set up the INT fund, and it is channeling capital into the market, and coupled with government's funding, it is facilitating transformation of R&D outcomes, and this is also stimulating the market's development and assessment. Professor William Wong, 2 minutes. I believe the government is well aware that IP rights and trademarks and copyright are very different things. I want to talk about copyright because I've recently taken part in some design work. There are many AI tools nowadays which affect designers. I wonder if the administration is going to follow up on this imminent issue. Director, AI is a very heated topic nowadays. We have to look at whether the work created by AI is infringing on people's rights. Also, the products generated from AI, are they original? Well, this is another topic. Thirdly, works generated from AI, would they infringe other people's works? There are countries that have done review on copyright that has to do with AI technology. We have to first look at our existing positioning, and we have to see what kind of works are protected and what not, and then we can draw reference from other countries' practices. We can look at court cases from other countries, for instance. We have also talked to people from different industries. For instance, how are films produced in later stages? We will collect all the information and then we'll talk to the industry about what we have observed, and we will seek their views on what they want us to do to protect their works and copyright. We want to do it in an open and reasonable manner. Well, this is a very complex issue. Not a lot of countries are able to deal with it yet. Well, I believe there is a dedicated subcommittee, or there is a dedicated meeting to talk about copyright issues arising from the development of AI. I thank the administration for attending this meeting. We're wrapping up this item now. Thank you. We now come to agenda item 4, latest developments of the InnoHK research clusters. Let me first invite government officials to join us.
首先，好歡迎今日我哋
Welcome government officials and experts to join us. We have Mr. Ivan Lee, Commissioner for Innovation and Technology. We also have some professors and experts from the InnoHK research clusters. Members who would like to speak, please press the request to speak button. I'll pass the floor to the administration to walk us through the PowerPoint presentation first. Good afternoon, members. InnoHK research clusters is a major INT initiative of the government. We have the staunch support of our motherland and we're closely connected to the world. With these advantages, we are developing global research collaboration with other places. InnoHK is striving to attract top-notch researchers and institutions to work with us. There are currently 2 research clusters under InnoHK. They are Health at InnoHK, which focuses on healthcare technology, and Air at InnoHK, focusing on AI and robotics technologies. There are 29 InnoHK centers. Local universities and research institutes, together with 29 advanced economies and over 30 top-notch universities and research institutions, have developed collaboration. And there are about 2,500 researchers from all over the world working on researches under InnoHK. InnoHK research centers have published over 2,000 papers in scientific journals. As for patents under registration, there are about 600 of them. There are over 70 startups and about 800 PhD students who are provided with training opportunities under InnoHK. There are also job opportunities for over 2,000 R&D personnel. The government strives to develop InnoHK and facilitate transformation and commercialization of R&D outcomes. Many of them have yielded significant results. Person in charge of 4 of the InnoHK research centers will speak about their projects later. To support the development of InnoHK research clusters, we are carrying out the midterm review. We have invited a total of 45 experts forming a scientific committee to conduct peer reviews. We expect that during the first half of 2024, we'll be able to complete the midterm review. The chief executive in his 2023 policy address mentioned that in 2024, the government will prepare to establish the 3rd InnoHK research cluster in Hong Kong, focusing on advanced manufacturing, materials, energy, and sustainable development. The relevant preparatory work will commence in the second half of this year. We believe that the 3rd InnoHK research clusters during the first phase will support no fewer than 50 research projects. The relevant work is included in our paper. I will invite the directors of 4 of the InnoHK research centers to brief members on their work. Chairman, if you allow, I will invite the first professor to talk about her project. Chairman, members, good afternoon. I'm glad that I have the opportunity to brief members on the latest research results of the Hong Kong Center for Neurodegenerative Diseases. This center is under InnoHK research clusters. We worked with 2 universities. They are Stanford University and London University College, to transform our research outcomes. We want our research outcomes to apply in clinical diagnosis. Alzheimer's disease, or AD, is one of the most commonly seen neurodegenerative diseases. As population is aging, that we will see more Alzheimer's disease patients. There are currently 6 types of drugs in the market. Only 5 of them can help relieve the symptoms. The 6th type of drugs last July was approved by the FDA in the US. This is a type of drug that can help address AD pathology, and this drug can help patients with mild cognitive impairment. So we have to look for treatment solutions, and we hope to improve the relevant medication. We'll focus on diagnostics and treatment. AD patients, a lot of times, they have memory loss and they go to see the doctor. But they are often facing later stage of their diseases when they seek help from doctor. During the 10 to 20 years when they are faced with clinical symptoms, their brains are facing a changing condition. If we can make breakthroughs, that would really help Alzheimer's disease patients. With years of hard work in 2022, we completed the study of biomarker study, and there were successful prototypes of blood test technology for AD diagnosis. We also developed a technology with the accuracy exceeding 96%. We can accurately indicate the pathological changes in patients' brains. This is a breakthrough, and this is revolutionary. And this is the first type of blood test technology that can be applied to AD patients. We can detect, screen, and sort AD patients with such blood test technology. We can also monitor the development of the illness of AD patients with such technology. Such technology has been licensed to the startup, and last July, the company rolled out the blood test services. Such R&D outcome is widely recognized by the industry. Last year, in a Geneva exhibition, such technology was awarded 2 important awards. On drugs, we used the new technology to identify new drug targets to facilitate drug development. To give you an example, we identified a specific blood protein soluble ST2 as a drug target for AD. We noticed that SST2's concentration in AD patients' blood increases, and that's why it impairs the patient's brain immune functions, and this increases pathological symptoms. If we can lower the level of such blood protein, then we can help address the drop of immune function of patients. We are testing the relevant drugs now. This year, in the Geneva exhibitions of inventions, we got 2 high-level awards for such breakthrough. And the 3rd type of breakthroughs is targeting familial AD patients. And normally, patients develop the disease before the age of 65, and it is caused by a single disease gene mutation. We have developed a gene editing tool, and it helps improve pathological symptoms of FAD in a mouse model. We think this can be a new strategy for AD treatment. And in 2021, we got an award for this project, and it is the first project in the GBA to get such an award, and we also got a golden award in the 2024 Geneva exhibitions of inventions. We think that if we can transform the R&D outcome, we can benefit our society. Through 4 startups spun off, we are carrying out preclinical development and industrialization. Moving forward, we hope to make further breakthroughs, and we hope to contribute more in the medical sector.
Thank you. I'll now invite Professor Philip Chu to talk about his work with the Multi-Scale Medical Robotics Center. Chair, members, good afternoon. I speak on behalf of the Multi-Scale Medical Robotics Center. I'll give you a brief overview of the work. I am the director of the center. I am also the dean of the Faculty of Medicine of InnoHK. Apart from working in clinical setting, we have another director of the center, Professor Ao Kwok Wai, who is an expert in automation engineering. The center was established in 2020, and we have had the support of InnoHK research clusters. The vision of the center is to provide technological innovation in medical robotics and help Hong Kong develop into a clinical research transformation hub. So our target will only be achieved through the practical application of our research outcomes. We have had the staunch support of the country and connectivity with the world. We have been working with multiple top-notch academic and scientific research institutions. We have professors of Imperial College London, Johns Hopkins University, and ETH Zurich, who are experts in the field to help us with our work. We have very advanced equipment in our research laboratory. We have one that is unique in Asia, hybrid MRI scanner and a C-arm X-ray system that would have robotic assistance. It allows us to conduct image-guided operations. We are also conducting preclinical studies in the center. I'll go into detail how important it is that we conduct preclinical studies. And our team consists not only of academics, we have been working with different sectors in our development of the technologies. We also believe it is very important to build an ecosystem. We have at the Chinese University of Hong Kong talents in the medical field as well as the engineering field, as said. We also have 2 important bases of operations, the Chinese University Medical Center as well as Prince of Wales Hospital, that would help us with the transformation of our research outcomes. Chinese University Medical Center plays an important role here because it helps us with clinical trials, and we can communicate with users of the medical robotics. And all these places can be reached within 15 minutes. That has really facilitated our work. We have 3 main projects at the moment. We have the endoluminal multi-scale robotic platforms to perform minimally invasive procedures for the treatment of lung cancer. We also have magnetic guided robotic platforms for our operations. We also have the image guided robotic intervention treatment technologies. As I said earlier, we have been working with organizations of different sectors. We have been working with startups in the Greater Bay Area, such as Cornerstone. It is a spin-off company of the InnoHK. We have also been working with top-notch research institutions and professors. We have been working with the Center for AI and Robotics of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. In fact, Professor Liu of that institution will give a presentation later. We have also been working with Boston Scientific to develop new equipment. In fact, as shown here, we have been working with these different partners to transform our research outcomes. We have conducted over 40 preclinical tests. We have conducted research with those that have passed away as well as on animals to see how our technologies work. We have also undertaken clinical trials in Prince of Wales Hospital, approximately 60 of such, and have successfully made use of the technologies in actual operations. We have also been awarded with multiple accolades. In fact, the Director of Hong Kong Macau Affairs Office, Mr. Xiao Baolong, has visited the center. We have also received a gold award from the International Exhibition of Inventions Geneva. We have also received a Red Dot Design Award in 2023. In conclusion, the center wants to realize the vision of development of medical robotics to bring about benefits to both working in the medical field as well as patients. Thank you. We'll now have Professor Kevin Jia of the Advanced Biomedical Instrumentation Center give us a presentation. Thank you. I would first like to apologize. The director's flight was postponed, so it would be me who would be giving this presentation. We would like to leverage on our advantages of being connected to the world and having the staunch support of the country. Our team consists of those from various regions and places. We have experts that have been working with us that have received multiple awards as shown here. We have been working with Professor David Wise from the Harvard University. He himself has laureates from different academies in America. He has also a fellow of the Chinese Academy of Engineering. He has been awarded with a very prestigious award of the US. I would like to thank the Hong Kong for providing us with a great platform for research collaboration. We have 20 ongoing projects at the moment. Due to time constraints, I will only talk about 3 today. I myself am leading one of the projects as shown here. We want to realize quick imaging of single cells with quick processing and AI. cells can be analyzed in detail in a short amount of time. We have been conducting clinical trials at the Hong Kong Children's Hospital and the Queen Mary Hospital to see how the technology work in clinical setting. The second project is led by Professor Chen. The study is on brain-computer interface technologies. They have developed a very soft material so that when conducting brain implants, it will cause less damage in brains. It can also analyze the operations of neurons. The study has been published in prestigious journals, and there is a spin-off startup for this project. In the long term, we hope to help patients who have suffered stroke, seizures, or Parkinson's. Professor Chen and I were born in Hong Kong. That's why we want to bring about benefits to Hong Kong patients with these two projects. The third project is led by another professor. It is on rapid sepsis diagnostics using structure switching attenuators. These diagnoses will really help with sepsis as well as different pain diseases. We welcome members to come visit our center to know more about our work. Next, we attach great importance to partnering with other organizations. We have thus shown here different partners. We have been working closely with the AI sector. Through collaboration with both the mainland and overseas, we have sped up transformation of our research outcomes. We have already incubated 5 startup companies. We have also conducted much proof of concept testing. For example, the diagnostics project, we have attracted much in funding. In order to enhance the influence of the center, we have been promoting collaboration with other high-level academic institutions. We have recently signed a memorandum of understanding with the National University of Singapore to increase academic exchanges. We have also worked with the University of New South Wales of Australia and Harvard University to hold seminars and forums. We have also invited renowned experts from the world to come to Hong Kong in June for a forum. We understand that we need talents in order to develop further. That's why we have implemented internship programs with Stanford University as well as the University of Oxford. We have also held seminars with different sectors. We have participated in international exhibitions as well, and we have received multiple awards as shown here. We want to not only work in academia. We have been learning more through the participation of academic exchanges in such exhibitions. We hope to have your continuous support so as to focus our work on further research and we can further transform our research outcomes. Well, we have to expedite our progress because we have quite a number of members who would like to ask questions. Thank you. Professor Liu Hongbin. Good afternoon, members. I'll speak in Putonghua. I'm very happy to be here today to tell you all about the work of the Center for AI and Robotics, Hong Kong Institute of Science and Innovation, Chinese Academy of Sciences. The center is quite special because it is the first research institute set up by the Chinese Academy of Sciences. There are two centers under this Institute of Science of Innovation, and both are funded by InnoHK research clusters. The establishment of the center is an important initiative made by the Academy, and we have been working with multiple academic institutions, including another research institute of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, Imperial College London, Hong Kong Polytechnic University, and Hong Kong City University. Our vision is to create an international innovation hub in the innovative applications of AI and robotics in healthcare and life science. We have been making studies in three major fields as shown here: medical robotics, theoretical studies on brains, as well as AI models. Here are the main officers of the center. We have Professor Xu Bo, who is the director of the other research institute that I mentioned. We also have Professor Sebastian Orslin, who is a very renowned expert who is working with King's College London. We have achieved multiple breakthroughs. First, we have the CARES Copilot, that is an AI model. It is an AI model that can help with human-machine interaction in operations. It can provide real-time intelligent analyses of images. It can analyze complicated textbooks on operations that are over 3,000 pages. We are currently applying 14 patents, and we have been preparing 8 papers. 2 of them are published. We have published our findings in March, and we have a dedicated website on the outcome. We have been conducting clinical trials in Prince of Wales Hospital and other hospitals in the mainland, totaling over 10 hospitals. We have our system, a clinical database that can perform a quick search of millions of pieces of data, and the response rate is highly accurate. It can be as high as 95%. Essentially, it can act as an operations advisor for hospitals. So it has been used to help train doctors and provide advice to medical personnel.
我们
The other type of technology is a development between us and the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Together, we jointly developed the first flexible robot system for minimum invasive brain surgery. The system breaks the limits of human doctors and surgeons, and it can help reduce trauma of patients by more than half. We have to thank Professor Chu Center for providing very good facilities for us, and in recent years, we managed to conduct various clinical experiments, and through rounds of improvement, we can now prove that this system can help address cerebral hemorrhage, trigeminal nerve pain, and it can also offer help to spinal endoscopic surgeries. We believe that over 1 million patients in Hong Kong and in the mainland can benefit from this system. The startups are being incubated for this particular technology. The valuation exceeded 400 million Hong Kong dollars. And we got an award for this system. Such award was widely reported by different media in Hong Kong, and over 20 local and foreign dignitaries asked to take a look at the system when they visited Hong Kong. We will work with hospitals in Hong Kong as well as some partnering hospitals on the mainland. We are also in collaboration with the Hong Kong Productivity Council. Apart from the technologies mentioned above, we also made breakthroughs in automatic ultrasonic scanning robots and other types of robotic technologies. Our vision is that we hope that through continuous hard work, we can make improvements through AI and robotics technology so that we can create a better future for Hong Kong and our country. Thank you, professors and directors. Now we come to the Q&A session. A number of members have pressed the button to speak. They are Mr. Sunny Tan, Professor William Wong, Mr. Robert Lee, Dr. Wendy Hong, Mr. Jesse Shang, and Mr. Duncan Chu. 4 minutes for each member. Mr. Sunny Tan, I thank ITIB, Commissioner, as well as all scientific personnel for their hard work. We have the support of the government. We also see the hard work of different scientific research teams, and I'm very grateful for their work. I have a couple of questions. The policy address mentions that it's going to set up the third InnoHK research cluster in Hong Kong, and it will focus on engineering and advanced manufacturing and sustainable development and so on. For garment and apparel in the sector, we need such smart technology. We see that AI Lab has achieved very good results under InnoHK. Can InnoHK continue with its efforts in the future to support different startups and enterprises? Also, the government mentions that there will be a midterm review in the first half of this year, and it's going to invite InnoHK to submit a report for their second 5-year proposal. What if the midterm review is not passed? Would the government still consider the proposal? Also, will there be latest update after the midterm review from the administration? Commissioner, I thank Mr. Sunny Tan for the questions. For the establishment of the third InnoHK research cluster, it will focus on advanced manufacturing, materials, energy, and sustainable development. As Mr. Sunny Tan mentioned, we think that we have a cutting edge in these areas, and we can include them or include this area in the production chain. I believe traditional industries can also benefit from the R&D outcomes in these areas, including advanced manufacturing and materials and sustainable development. It will depend on what kind of proposals we receive before we decide on what the third InnoHK research cluster will look like. In terms of how the R&D outcomes will be materialized, we will, through the assessment committee, look at the proposals. On the midterm review, member mentioned that there will be a second 5-year proposal from relevant Hong Kong centers for those who successfully passed the midterm review. For those who fail to meet certain targets, we'll have the committee to talk to the relevant Hong Kong centers, and within 6 months' time, the center can make improvement, and they will submit another report after the 6-month window. We will look at the recommendation of the scientific committee again before we turn to the assessment panel for recommendations. So the centers who failed to meet the targets will have 6 months' time to make improvement. On the last question, we are happy to make a report on the latest progress of the Hong Kong centers to members anytime. Professor William Wong. Thank you, Chairman. I recognize the effort made by the Commission. The projects are extraordinary, and I thank the experts for attending the meeting today. The government paper mentions that there are some 600 patents granted or in application. How many of these patients have been registered successfully? Hong Kong would like to collaborate with overseas institutions or counterparts more frequently. I want to know how many of these patients are from overseas institutions. My last question is that the government plans to inject $2 billion for the Hong Kong platform to build an Life Health Tech Hub in the Loop. The first phase of the Loop has been completed this year, or will be completed this year. When will the hub be commissioned? Thank you, Professor Wong, for the 600 patents. Some of them have been granted. Some of them are still being reviewed. As you know, processing patent applications like these takes time. As to how many of these patients are from outside Hong Kong, I can provide relevant information after the meeting. Well, one of our visions is to set up in the Loop in the Hong Kong Shenzhen Innovation and Technology Park a hub. Our goal is to incorporate all kinds of technologies that have to do with life and health into the hub. For instance, startups or companies spun off from Hong Kong research clusters, if they think that the Loop can offer help to them, we want to pull them together to build a comprehensive ecosystem for them. We are still planning for the relevant measures. If needed, we can give another update to members in due course. Well, I understand that by the end of this year, the Loop will be commissioned. I believe the hub will not be ready by then. Is that right? There are different companies or enterprises in the Loop or that are scheduled to be stationed in the Loop. We are also asking whether there are any universities that are interested in going to the Loop. The first 3 buildings will be commissioned by this year, and there will be other buildings to be completed at a later stage. I believe for the first phase, there will be relevant companies in this area that will be admitted to the Loop. Next, Mr. Robert Lee. Thank you, Chairman. We've just heard from the administration and experts on the latest development of the Hong Kong research clusters. Back in 2018, the government allocated $10 billion to set up the 2 Hong Kong research clusters, and also there was financial support given to the relevant clusters through the INT fund. There is a dedicated committee to assess the proposals. I want to know whether there are members from the financial sector or the business and industrial sector with expertise or experience in managing investment and fund in the assessment panel, so that there can be views and comments on how financial support can be given to the InnoHK centers. Also, how can the government ensure that the R&D outcomes can be commercialized?
Thank you. Director, please. Thank you for the questions. We have the steering committee. We have 10 odd members on that committee. Apart from academics, we also have those from the financial sector and the business sector. It is, as Mr. Robert Lee suggested, we need cross-sectoral collaboration in order to assess the projects from different perspectives. I remember one or two of the members are working in venture capital companies that specifically invest in life health projects. They have provided valuable advice to us so far. Commercialization of research outcomes is actually very complicated. We need an ecosystem to build to back that up. We need, as I said, cross-sectoral collaboration with the ecosystem of the Hong Kong Science Park. Business matching services can be provided. For the 20-odd InnoHK centers, we have already spun off 70-odd companies, and 40-odd of them, I'm happy to report, have joined the incubation program of the Hong Kong Science Park. The Hong Kong Science Park has been exploring how they can better provide support to commercialize such research outcomes. Thank you, Dr. Wendy Hung. I would like to thank the various experts for sharing their work. I'm very impressed. I understand the midterm review will be completed this year, and then they will invite the centers to submit their second 5-year proposal. A third InnoHK cluster will also be set up later. I want to ask, for the third cluster, is it the case that additional funding will have to be sought from the Legislative Council? That's my first question. The paper also includes an annex of the research centers or laboratories admitted to InnoHK research clusters. Most of these would involve collaboration with overseas education institutions. Not a lot of the partnering institutions are industrial institutions. It seems to be against the vision of InnoHK research clusters. How can we encourage more companies to join the collaboration? Because if we ask them to join the collaboration, it will definitely facilitate the commercialization and development of research outcomes. The private companies can also provide funding and different kinds of support with the commercialization of research outcomes. I want to ask, with the second 5-year proposal for the 2 existing clusters to be submitted and a third cluster is to be set up, is this a good opportunity to promote collaboration with the industries in order to consolidate the progress of InnoHK research clusters? Thank you. As said by the member, we will soon complete the midterm review by the InnoHK Scientific Committee. We will invite InnoHK centers that have passed the midterm review to submit their second 5-year proposals after that, and then we will also prepare for a third InnoHK research cluster. We have obtained funding before in 2018. The funding would be for centers in their operations and acquiring of equipment. We would have recurrent funding as well. For the $10 billion funding in 2018 for operations, we believe the residual funds would be enough to set up the third cluster and support its work in the first stage. We have different funding schemes under the InnoHK research clusters. If we are going to run out of funds, we will definitely come back to the council to seek funding, and we hope to have your support. The vision of InnoHK research clusters is to develop Hong Kong into a center for research collaboration and attract institutions that are among the global top echelon to collaborate with local institutions. Indeed, most of the institutions that we mentioned here are academic institutions, but as the experts said, they have partnered with multiple private companies with the commercialization of research outcomes. As Dr. Wendy Hong said, these private companies have been providing different kinds of support, such as funding support, as well as support in practical applications of the research outcomes. In fact, in our assessment criteria, if the centers partner with private companies, we will give them higher ratings. I will extend the meeting by 15 minutes as we have 2 other members that are going to speak. Thank you. Mr. Shen Hailong. Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank the experts that have come here today to brief members on your work. I am very excited. In fact, I myself visited some of the centers, and I am very glad to see that the different centers have also received many visits from senior officials from the mainland as well as overseas. I have 3 questions. I want the Commissioner to answer Dr. Hong's questions directly. How much of the $10 billion has been used, and how confident you are that the residual funds can be used to establish the third research cluster? We have no fewer than 50 research projects in the first phase of the third cluster. We have before the 2 clusters that would focus on health and AI and robotics. Which areas will you focus on for the third cluster, and where will you place them? Because the 2 clusters are mainly located in the Hong Kong Science Park, and I believe they will not have sufficient space there. The Commissioner said they would obtain additional funding from the Council if necessary. But I would say that if we're adopting the direction of putting in place incubator programs, and since you're assessing centers, I think you should assess the centers' capabilities of being self-reliant. Have you included such factor in your criteria of assessment? That's it for now from me. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sheng, for your questions. let me say this. When we obtained the $10 billion in funding, it would just be for the establishment of the research clusters and the operations. And $5 billion have been used in the 5 years. We would make some adjustments in the next few years. Under this premise, we believe we have sufficient funds at the moment to set up the third cluster. Let me clarify something, however. When we talk about the third InnoHK research cluster, we are talking about providing support to no fewer than 50 research projects, not centers. A center can have multiple projects. We will see which projects to focus on by considering various factors, but the details will be fleshed out later. Regarding the third cluster, where the centers will be placed is definitely an issue. Ideally, we would have the centers placed in the Hong Kong Science Park, but that would depend on how many centers would vacate their premises. We would also have to look at the requirements of the centers to see if they can be placed in the Hong Kong Science Park. It is too early for us to say whether these centers will be placed in Hong Kong Science Park as a result. On commercialization of research outcomes, right now we're dealing with the upstream part of this. But by encouraging centers to work with the industries, I understand right now they have obtained funding from industries as well. Right now, it would be approximately $150 million in funding. It may not sound like a lot, but as I said, because this is relatively upstream, it is hard for them to obtain funding. I also said that there have been some spin-off startup companies. They have obtained funding as well, but we did not include such figures in our calculations. It is actually very important for the centers to partner with private companies to obtain funding. When we assess the second 5-year proposals of the research centers, we will definitely assess the financial viability of the centers, and we will take into account their capabilities in obtaining funding from the private sector. Thank you. Mr. Duncan Chu. Thank you, Chair. I do support the initiative, and I appreciate the latest development of the InnoHK research clusters. As said earlier, the midterm review will soon be completed, and the centers who have passed the midterm review will submit their second 5-year proposals. I heard due to the pandemic, there have been multiple setbacks. For example, the overseas experts could not come to Hong Kong. I think there may be a need for the administration to delay the submission of second 5-year proposals. I understand that peer reviews will be conducted, and if indeed certain centers cannot pass the midterm review, will they receive any support? I heard that there are applications for patents that are ongoing, and it may be of the centers that cannot pass the midterm review. How will we support them to make sure such patent applications can still go through? I heard for some centers they have 20-odd projects that are ongoing. They may be studying different aspects. If they have new projects and they use that as a reason to delay the submission of proposals or to explain the differences in the proposals because there are new research outcomes. Would that affect their renewal? Thank you.
主席，
Commissioner, I thank Mr. Duncan Chu for the questions. Mr. Chu is right. When we prepared to establish the centers in 2018-2019, we experienced black-led violence. We also experienced the COVID pandemic. We stress cross-institutional, cross-sectoral collaboration between Hong Kong and the mainland for these Hong Kong centers. Back then, people could not take the plane to come to Hong Kong, and a lot of work could not be done. A lot of the precision equipment and machines had to be delivered to Hong Kong, but we didn't have the technicians to assemble the parts for the machines. I remember a professor shared with me such experience when I visited one of the centers. So we did experience a tough time. But fortunately, some of the Hong Kong centers were able to catch up. Professor Lau kept telling me that for the first few years, a lot of the work could not be taken forward at the centers. But the centers were able to catch up with the progress in the later years. So when we conduct the assessment, we will consider all these factors. Mr. Chu mentioned in case some of the Hong Kong centers could not pass the midterm review, would we ask them to still submit the second 5-year proposal? Well, I believe we will work with institutions on a transitional proposal. Some of the researchers perhaps near completion. I believe the relevant institutions, even if they do not carry on with the research, they can still conduct the research on their own, even they do not keep operating the Hong Kong centers. And we have various subsidy schemes to provide support for them. You mentioned that there will be second 5-year proposal and whether they can open up new centers with the 5 years experience they have gained. Well, for some centers, if they find that the original project they worked on could not yield results or were not effective, they can reprioritize their projects and come up with a new focus. We believe that the new projects, however, would create synergy with the original projects they propose. So again, we will take into consideration different factors as we make the assessment. Lastly, I have a couple of questions for the administration as well. I'm happy to see that we have yielded great R&D research outcomes with the research centers. The persons in charge of 4 Hong Kong centers have spoken, and they are on AI and robotics technologies and healthcare technology. Would there be coordination between different centers to prevent or avoid overlapping of research areas? That's my first question. Second, you mentioned that there will be a midterm review on the centers. The 70 enterprises or startups, can we guarantee success for them? I want to ask about the shareholding of these enterprises. Does the administration have any part to play in the shares? After all, we're using taxpayers' money, so I believe this is close to the heart of many people from the public. Commissioner, when the research centers submitted the proposals, we looked at the research areas they worked on. So when we approved the applications, we already prevented overlapping of research areas. I remember in the presentations of Professor Chu and Professor Lau, they mentioned that some of the other research centers could make use of the equipment and facilities in their centers. I told the science park that we should organize more events to facilitate exchanges between different Hong Kong centers. Say a professor, if he is aware of what other projects the other centers are working on, it might be helpful to them. I know that individual research centers, they hold exchange activities as well. There are 17W and 19W in the science park. They meet each other, or they run into each other very often, and they update each other on their own research progresses. As for the distribution of shares of the startups and enterprises, well, we don't impose a restriction on this. Each research center has its own board of directors. Apart from professors that take part in the research projects, there are representatives from universities and institutions in the board of directors. Say, if IP can be generated from the research projects, we ask that some of these assets have to stay in the research centers if the center is to be operated continuously. Of course, the relevant decision has to be made by the director of the board of directors of different of the research center concerned. We want to make sure that there's a reasonable distribution of shares. That's all for this discussion item. I thank the administration and the experts for attending this meeting. Now, agenda item 5, any other business? I don't have other business. If there are no other business from members, meeting adjourned.